Hello and welcome to Across the Bifrost, the Mighty Thor podcast, where on each and every episode, we explore the world of Marvel's Mighty Thor. I'm your host, Ryan Doze, and this is our Valentine's Day episode, everybody. I'm so glad that you've chosen to listen to the show today. We are going to be talking about a very important form of love today, and that is the love of friendship, one that Thor is very familiar with because of his relationship with the Warriors 3. Yes, they are Asgard's favorite trio, and we are spotlighting them today with some special guests from Comic Geek Speak. Chris Eberle is back, and then first-time guest of the show, Ian Levenstein, is here. Those two guys join me for a fantastic conversation about the Warriors 3 that I know you're going to enjoy. But before we get into that, I wanted to give a shout-out, give a thank you to our two newest patrons. Yes, we have two new patrons on our special bonus exclusive site, Patreon. That is Josh and Will. They've been former guests. They are hosts on an awesome podcast called Systematic Geekology that I encourage you to go look out and check out. They are awesome, and they are our two newest members of the Thor Corps over on Patreon. So thank you guys very much for supporting the show. I hope you are enjoying the bonus material that you have access to over there on that site. That being said, let's jump into our conversation with Chris and Ian all about some of Thor's greatest friends. The three characters that we are going to highlight today are Hogun the Grim, Fandral the Dashing, and of course, our guy, Volstagg the Voluminous. They are three amazing characters, and we dig into everything that makes them great on this conversation with Chris and Ian from Comic Geek Speak. Enjoy. Well, everybody, I am very excited to be joined again by Chris Eberle from Comic Geek Speak, and also another component to the Comic Geek Speak gang. Ian Levenstein is here. These are two guys I've told Chris last time he was on the show, I have listened to them talk about comics for hours, and now they get to join a chat that we're going to have about the Warriors 3. So Chris, Ian, introduce yourselves to the audience. Tell them a little bit about yourself before we jump into this book.
I think the component of CGS should go first.
Yes.
that I'm putting that on a business card, Chris. That's happening. My name is Ian Levenstein. I've been podcasting for over 15 years, and every single time I say it, it's hard to believe it's been that long at this point. But had my own show for a while called Geek Speak, then found Comic Geek Speak and realized how original I was. And then went on and founded the Comic Timing podcast with my co-host at the time, David Price, who's now over at 11 O'Clock Comics, and Toby Cook. That then became me and Brent Cassina and a rotating panel, and it's been me and Brent ever since. And we still put it out at least like a couple times a year whenever we can over at comictiming.net.
Okay.
But I've been a part of CGS now for 4 years, I feel like.
Oh wow, it's 3 or 4, yeah.
Three or four, yeah. Because I know, like, I started coming on in like 2018, so I think I officially became a geek sometime in that general sphere.
Sounds about right. Yep.
Yeah,
Nice.
and been loving it ever since. And it's good to be part of the team.
Fantastic. Chris,
he gave me a chill again. I'm sorry, Ryan. Go ahead.
I was just going to say a little like a reintroduction for people maybe that haven't checked out our Tales of Asgard episode.
Sure. So my name is Chris Eberle. Comics, for better or for worse, have been an enormous part of my life since I could read. I owned a comic shop in New Jersey, Wildcat Comics, for 18 years. I've been a member of the CGS podcast since 2013, but known them since long before that. And I've always loved the Mighty Thor. Definitely here I've, fell in love with when I first started reading Marvel comics when I was a kid. So as always, I'm very happy to be here, Ryan.
And speaking of love for Mighty Thor, that's why this show exists. And as Chris and I were doing the Tales of Asgard, really became an even more bigger fan of the Warriors 3. They're already a phenomenal addition to Thor's fantastic supporting cast. But this was the first time that those three characters, Volstagg, Fandral, and Hogan, had received their first series. They get this 4-issue limited series in 2010. It had taken decades for them to get their own solo story.
Do they have a story in Marvel Fanfare?
They do.
Okay,
I believe it's more of a Fandral story.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So, and of course, that they're highlighted in backup stories and in a lot of anthology books. But this was like they were on the cover. This was their book, and I really wanted to talk about this book because it's just a fun book. Like that, for no other reason. They're great characters. It's a great, fun story. And say your interest in these characters is piqued by the movies or another Thor comic. You're like, I just want to see these guys. This is the perfect read. So before we jump into the actual issues, I wanted to know from Chris and Ian, what were kind of your introductions to these characters, and what about these characters kind of fascinates you or interests you?
Levy Pooh, hold forth.
Well, I see my experience with Thor is probably lower than Chris's, just because well, not even that. Like I was a fan of like the Avengers, long before the movies and what have you. But like the individual series that the Avengers were in, it took me quite some time to actually really like get my footing on.
Okay.
I'd say after Heroes Were Born is when I started actually picking up the Thor comic, and I picked it up straight through pretty much. Although I'm way behind and haven't read most of Aaron's stuff, and I'm eventually gonna have to get my ass on that.
Oh yes.
What comes after? But it was Jurgen's Thor that
Okay.
really got me into the character, with the whole King of Asgard storyline and all that, and then JMS's run, the Warriors 3, they were in it, but they weren't like key factors. But I did get to appreciate the running relationship between Thor and the other Asgardians through that process.
Okay.
And obviously the movies. I mean, even though they didn't play as big a part as I would have liked in further iterations of the Thor franchise, you could get their jovial nature and their friendship through those movies and obviously the comics leading up to them. So that's pretty much where I run from it.
Okay.
Eloquent as ever, my friend. Eloquent as ever. I've loved these characters since I was a kid. I remember, reading Silver Age reprints, and these three characters kept appearing, if not in the background, or at least very much by Thor's side. And first of all, before I understood that they were modeled after the Three Musketeers, which I obviously realized as I got older, but what I loved was how different their personalities were, yet they all meshed, and also just how entertaining these characters are. Most importantly, Volstagg the Voluminous,
the best,
or as he would say, the Lion of Asgard. I mean, clearly Stan Lee and every writer has so much fun with his dialogue. And how, he's often there for comic relief, even though in the end he always comes through when he needs to. And to concur with Ian, I thought in the films, even though I would have liked them to have more screen time, and I thought they were terribly treated with the way they were killed off in the last Thor film. But I thought that was a gaffe.
Almost tossed away.
Yeah, but the scenes they were in, the creators of the films clearly got the essence of those characters. And I remember there's an early scene in the first Thor film where Volstagg is in majestic repose, just consuming like just hordes of food, and Fandrel's, mock horrified at it. I was like, oh, they got it. And
yes,
that I thought they did them justice with what they were and how they used. I just wish they had used them more. But I mean, again, the essence of it all is really when they're walking down that street in the first Thor film, the Sheila's like, is there a Renaissance fair in town? We've got Jackie Chan, Robin Hood, and Xena. So they got it. And it was really fun to see them come to life like that.
Definitely.
Yeah. The like gentleman said, like they're such an entertaining trio. They are, like Chris said, modeled after the Three Musketeers. If you're familiar with Shakespeare, Volstagg is a Falstaff character where he's a comedic buffoon, and he really adds so much to any book he's in. Listeners of this show know that Volstagg is my guy. He is my favorite supporting character. Like, really, Volstagg? Yeah, Volstagg's awesome. So let's jump into this limited series. I'll tell listeners, this limited series lands in between two huge Marvel crossover events. It has really nothing to do with either event, but I just, for those of you that want context, this limited series comes right after the Siege event, which ended the Dark Reign, Norman Osborn takeover of the Marvel Universe. So it's in the fallout of that, and it comes right before the Fear itself, very Asgardian-centric story. So at this time in Marvel Comics, Asgard is everywhere. And there's so much being put out that has to do with the Nine Realms and Thor and his supporting cast. The Warriors 3 4-issue limited series comes out at the end of 2010. So we're going to jump back to 2010, a few months before the first Thor film, and we are going to get this, this adventure from these three friends as they take on the Fenris Wolf, which either of you guys want to take a crack at maybe describing the Fenris Wolf, why he's important, what he has to do with Thor?
Oh, that's a Murd question.
Oh my God. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Murd would wax eloquently and probably do so for about 15 minutes.
He'd get into the mythological basis of Fenris.
Okay.
Definitely.
Which frankly, I know very little about beyond just the kind of the basics you saw in the story. So Ryan, we're failing you here miserably.
That is perfectly fine. Fine. I am not failed in any way. The Fenris Wolf is this for the Asgardians, the purpose of our story. He's an ancient foe of the Asgardians, where he goes and he starts murdering whole villages of people. And after he decimates one village in ancient times, he is held prisoner by the Asgardians. And at the beginning of the first issue, we find out that his murderous rampage has resumed. And the Warriors 3, along with some of the army of Asgard, are dispatched to track him down and find out how he was set free, and they're sent to stop him. So this first issue, we get an introduction to the Warriors 3. And what did you guys think of how they were introduced in this first issue?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for suggesting reading this, because I've never read this story.
Okay.
Before, and I knew it existed, but I had never read it. And I had forgotten that Bill Willingham wrote it. So when I saw that I got Warriors 3 and Bill Willingham, I was really excited to read this. Any listeners who've read Fables, they should be familiar with Bill Willingham and know that he is tailor-made to write the story that we are going to talk about.
Yes.
So I thought from the opening issue, it's clear that Willingham clearly understood each character. And what most excited me, he got the dialogue down pat with all three of them
perfectly.
Because each of those characters has a very distinctive voice. Like Fandrel's basically Errol Flynn, like a swashbuckling character, and Hogan is like this almost pattern of like a Mongol essentially, and is Hogan the Grim. So each voice was very clear. But what really grabbed me, to go back to what you're saying about Fenris, was that William isn't just content to just tell like another fun Warriors 3 story. He also decides to use the Fenris as a device to explain how and why the Warriors 3 act the way they do, why they came together in a sense, and why they have the personalities they have, which no one has ever done before this story. So what worked for me so well on two levels is, one, it was a really just fun Warriors 3 story, but two, Willingham and company dive deep into why these characters are who they are. So
I definitely was not expecting an origin story.
Neither was I.
Going into this, like I fully expected it would just be, like an adventure with the Warriors 3, because frankly, I didn't think Marvel would let Willingham do that in a 4-issue miniseries. That seems like something that would usually be much better fit for the Thor series proper, where all eyes are on this. Like in this 4-issue arc, see the origin of the Warriors 3 and how they got to where they were or something like that. But instead, it's built into this story. They do a really good job of building it in.
Yeah.
It's just, again, it took me for a loop. I was not expecting that direction at all.
Yeah, even the origin of the Warriors 3, it sets the stage in issue 2. We get to see, why the budding rivalry that Volstagg and Fandral had way back when. The initial encounter that the Warriors 3 have with Fenris way back when is a very simple reason. Volstagg and Fandral get in this argument of who is greater, who is better, and the way they decide to determine who is better is who can pat the head of the Fenris wolf. And they need a judge to go make sure that it actually happened. And Hogan draws the short straw, and he goes with them. A completely different Hogan than most modern fans would know of him. He's very meek, and he's called Fair Hogan. He's the one that enjoys songs and singing.
Sensitive.
Yeah, he's very sensitive, and he's not the Hogan that we would come to know years later in Thor stories. This, I like that you guys hit on the origin story aspect of this, because that origin leads to why they have to go after Fenris in the modern telling of the story. So just a little bit of a narrative summary here, and then I'll jump into just a few things I wanted to ask you guys and kind of bally about. The secret organization AIM, the Advanced Idea Mechanics, who, by the way, did not see them as a component of this story beforehand, would have been like, are you sure? Like MODOK's guys? And they show up and they decide that they're going to weaponize the monsters of Asgard. Seems like a pretty good plan until they actually encounter Fenris. And Fenris is the lord of the monsters in this area of hell. And they try to use him in a way where they try out an experiment on him, and then they're going to try and recapture that with other test subjects. That goes horribly wrong, of course, and the Warriors 3 are sent to go stop this plan from happening. So when Fenris is laying waste to these Midgard towns, as the story is progressing, how did you feel this story added to these guys' characters? Because they've been around for decades. And I know we talked about their origin, but as this story is unfolding, what about these characters is kind of resurfacing, or maybe you were revisiting the themes of these characters as we're reading this?
Well, I think what was most engaging about what you're describing is that, like when you talked about when they have like their tavern bet back, so many centuries ago, Volstagg does not look like the Volstagg we know.
No. He's cut.
He looks like a cut, typical Asgardian warrior, and he still has the bluster and all that, but he's physically a very different person, and naturally that's going to inform how he's acting. And like you said, Hogan is totally different. Fandral is still like the cad and the again, he's the braggadocio, but
yeah.
What really struck me was, they established this dynamic they had then, and then when they all go to this to make good on their tavern bet, like you mentioned, what happens traumatizes them, each in a different way. And again, the mark of a great writer, Willingham he doesn't change anything. He just explores something about the Warriors 3 that no one had really done, but he does it in such a way that it still dovetails nicely with the characters we know now. It's masterful.
Yeah.
Well, I think what works so perfectly about the story is that he essentially, by giving the origins of the Warriors 3, he kind of gives them an origin story similar to the version of Thor that we know. One that through arrogance winds up having to learn a very valuable lesson and redeem himself. And these Warriors 3 were arrogant as heck at the beginning of their lives here. Because they're immature. They had to learn how to mature. And little did they know it would be through trauma, and essentially through trauma bonding, which is what they experienced here. That's why they became the three that they did, because of the horrid events of trying to pet the dog, as it were. But I wanted to comment also on the artwork on
Absolutely.
this. Neil Edwards is the pencilist, kind of a Brian Hitch clone, but not in a bad way. Because
Okay.
I got major Brian Hitch vibes, especially like his Fantastic Four run. Like when the Fantastic Four show up at for a couple pages.
Reed of Richards.
Yes.
Reed of Richards. Yes.
It certainly doesn't help that they're wearing their Miller Hitch costumes, but definitely in facial expressions and in action and in design aesthetic, I very much get a Brian Hitch vibe from the artwork. And that just helps what's happening with the Warriors 3 even further, because everything's detailed, but at the same time not stiff.
Good point.
And you read the emotion on the page as they're going through what they're going through really, really well.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more on the art. The thing, actually, I don't know if this is a common or popular opinion. The thing I knew Neil Edwards from, really the only thing of his that is only artwork that I had seen before, was from his Spider-Man season 1 book that they did, the season 1 books. I really like, when I was getting into comics as an older fan, the season 1 books were so great because they didn't require me to know much beforehand, and they kind of simplified it and abridged the beginning of these heroes' careers. So the Spider-Man one appealed to me because everyone loves Spider-Man. So the Neil Edwards art in that was really the only thing I had known of him before this. But when I saw him on this book, I got excited because I enjoyed Spider-Man season 1.
Yeah. I've read X-Men season 1. I've never actually read Spider-Man season 1, but now that I know that he drew it, that's more of a reason for me to track it down.
I think
the other thing I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
Oh, go ahead.
The other thing that struck me, piggybacking on our comments about how the events of Fenris changed them, then Willingham doesn't let that go. So when he goes back to the present day, like, now we understand why Volstagg looks the way he does and tries to lose himself in gluttony, basically. And there's a great scene where they're in the pickup truck with Helen. And Hogan is ticked at the way Fandral is doing his typical, come on. And you further understand why Fandral acts the way he does. Each of them kind of retreated into their own version of how they can kind of wall off what happened, or at least deal with it in their own way. This story is very deceptive because, like you said, you kind of think, oh, it's going to be really fun, and it was.
Yeah.
But there was something else going on there too, which made it all the more effective.
Yeah.
Your reference to Helen Gable leads me into the next thing I wanted to ask. We meet an entirely new character in this story. She is a what did you say, Ian?
I said we do, and looking up her history has not been used since.
That's what I was wondering about. Yeah,
which is kind of
a shame.
She's a very endearing character in the time that we get with her. She's part of the AIM team that goes and tries to capture the power of Fenris. And she's really the only one left who was experimented on using the shape-shifting, the power aspects of Fenris. And she comes to find out that she's now part Asgardian, and she is distantly related to Loki. There's a small little panel at the end of the book that's really fun. Not a great drawing of Loki, but like it's kind of a fun little panel to poke fun, and it's really the only glimpse we see of Loki in this book. But her name is Helen Gable, and she is a superpowered warrior goddess now, thanks to being imbued with some of the power of Fenris. And I wanted to get your guys' opinion of her. Really, this is the only time we see her in Marvel Comics. What did you think of this character, and what were just some of your takeaways from her being in this story?
Go ahead, Leveroux.
So I like the character, and I like what the character does to the Warriors 3, where essentially, she's the the woman that they're pining after in certain aspects. Everyone but Volstagg, because Volstagg could care less. But
Truly.
I have a problem with characters that appear to be more important than they are going to be. Which leads me to the question of, was Bill Willingham going to do more with this character? Was he going to do more for Marvel and possibly even with Thor? And those plans fell through, because this doesn't seem like a character you just introduce and then throw
I agree.
away.
Yep.
If you had further plans, because you're, even if it's a throwaway line, like you're tying her into Loki at the end.
Yes.
And then nothing else ever comes of it. It's very, it kind of makes the character unfortunately feel forced that way. And I know that's not what they were aiming to do, because it's not even that I don't enjoy the character. It's just that it's a flash in the pan, and I hate flash in the pants.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
I share L. Levenstein's opinion there. What I would add to that is that what I found really interesting about her is that she's not a good person. She's a murderer, which by her admission, she talked about how she killed for AIM. And, she's an AIM scientist, so she's probably involved in all kinds of horrible experiments. And like they said, their job was they try to sell weapons technology to all kinds of ne'er-do-wells. Her drunken rants about Hydra were tremendous, by the way. But
that was
I love
a great
the rivalry.
scene.
But what I liked was that she's not a more heroic figure. Think about how they took the one member of their team and brought him along to be the sacrificial goat to Fenris. So, she's an AIM agent. So we have to remember that. But I liked how her experience transformed her and obviously had an impact on her perspective on herself and what was going on around her. So like Ian said, it's a character like, okay, I want to see more. And she clearly created a love triangle between Fandral, Hogan, and her, which is the end. And like Ian said, that's just dropped. Like you never seen anything about that again. So it's a character that I found interesting, and I really would have liked to have seen what they're going to do with her. But c'est la vie.
But that was the other thing. Ian hit on this, that like, was there going to be more of this? Because it definitely feels like an introduction to something that could have been bigger. Helen drops so many different like little like plot nuggets that like, oh, that could have been something. Like, the book literally ends on her mentioning what Chris just said, the love triangle of her, Hogan, and Fandral. That would have been entertaining. Like seeing Hogan and Fandral fight over her for some reason. Like it would have been interesting. But did this feel like there was going to be more to you guys?
I'm wondering, because Marvel's done this and other comic book companies have done this before as well. If this miniseries was itself a trial run, if they gave Bill Willingham the ball, and said, Bill, we know you haven't done a lot for Marvel. We have this idea of building out the Warriors 3 into their own ongoing. They had their run on Journey in the Mystery when Kieran Gillen was a part of that book, and they were more front and center. Let's try a mini series out. Let's see how it sells, and if it does well, then maybe we can bring you on for a full series if you have the time and to do so. Again, completely spitballing here and making it up. It could very much not be true, but we've seen this before.
No, it's a plausible theory, of course.
Yeah. So it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case, and unfortunately, it just didn't sell the way they wanted it to sell, or perhaps Bill Willingham became busy with other stuff and couldn't fulfill it, and it just never wind up following up that way. You never know.
Yeah, it feels like the context of when this miniseries is coming out. Thor is about to hit the movie screen, and there's a lot of Asgardian events going on. Thor's book is still happening. Like, it feels like maybe that was an attempt, a pilot to maybe expand the Asgardians into other ongoing series. But I personally would have loved that. But I'm gonna love the Warriors 3 no matter when and how we get them. So I want to go more specifically to the last issue, because the last issue is where really our conflict culminates, where Fenris has this plan where he's taken on human forms, and he can take on human forms as long as he's devouring the next person he wants to shapeshift into. That's how he taps into his Loki like ability to shape shift, and he decides that he is going to detonate this bomb near Asgard and get rid of all the gods. It's a very simple plan, and the Warriors 3 have to stop a train to save Asgard. This felt so Wild West to me, and it was so much fun. But that last issue, I'll ask you guys like for your version of this answer, but my favorite panel of the entire limited series was when Hogan swings his mace and decimates an entire train. It was so cool. Loved it. He calls it a steel serpent. And it's the most incredible panel, I believe, in the limited series. And did you have a panel that jumped out to you in this series, maybe this last issue, where our conflict kind of settles down?
Well, I the one that really jumped out to me, honestly, was when they finally capture the beast. When they use, essentially the invisible leash to
yes,
to get him back under control. And really that's kind of my favorite part of the whole thing, that using their wits and their trickery to make it happen, proving that they're not just all strength, they're also brains. And that's that's one of the best parts of all this, is watching them kind of evolve as characters and getting every single bit of them in the process. So that was pretty awesome.
And to add Ian's point, I mean, Fandroid was even alluding to his love of Midgard detective stories.
Yes,
to help him along in how to crack the case, so to speak.
Yep.
I don't know if I had a favorite. I mean, the panel you described, Ryan, was stunning, and it's always great to see when they remind us how powerful any of these Asgardian warriors are, not just Thor. But I mean, Thor is obviously a different class, but still, that was a thrilling panel. When they were falling to Earth, when their ship was destroyed, and her narrative, like her internal monologue, was really well done throughout the series, and she's panicking about everything, and they're just like, "Oh, it's all right, it'll hurt, but you'll survive when you hit the Earth. You're a god now, basically." And again, just I remember thinking about, I'm about to die, and they're like laughing about all this, like she's still trying to figure out how to operate in this new reality that powers that she now has. But them crashing to Earth, and just Volta's like, "All right, come on, we got to get up," and and I especially love the panel where he tells Fenris to, like, just finish me off, and then he wants to remind everybody, "Oh, that was just part of the plan. The Lion of Asgard would never actually cringe like that."
Yes.
That whole sequence, that like you said, when they got the invisible leash, as Ian put it, which is funny because you actually couldn't even see it because it was so fine.
Yes.
But it was all they were bracing scenes. They were fun.
My second favorite part was right when they catch the bomb, and the bomb is clearly the Death Star. Like, that's
right.
Yep.
So listeners, if you don't, we encourage you to go read this story. But if you want to picture the bomb that is Fenris is planning on detonating it in Asgard, just imagine a shrunken down version of the Death Star. Like, they could not have been going for anything different.
That was it.
I mean, it's if you want a little Star Wars with Thor comics, get it here. So guys, the conflict ends. The Fenris Wolf is captured again, and Asgard is saved. They have the Warriors 3 and Helen Gable to thank. Just closing thoughts of this fun limited series, that really expands. I expanded my enjoyment of the Warriors 3 and their stories, and kind of like gave me that thought, like we were talking about a few minutes ago, what could have been, what might have been. But as we finish out this book review of this limited series, what were kind of your takeaways from this 4-issue limited series?
Levy Poo?
Well, really, and thinking back to it now, like realizing when this came out, and you mentioned that, it was right before the Thor movie came out. I'd kind of forgotten there was also a Valkyrie one shot right around the time that this came out, written by a friend of mine, Brian J. Glass,
Okay.
for Marvel. And I think it kind of says to me that maybe they were actually like testing things out and being like, which of these characters could possibly, warrant their own ongoing series. For a 4-issue mini, this does a great job of telling a really fun and interesting story, and giving us backstory that we've never gotten before on characters that we've seen time and time again. And that's what I like to see out of a miniseries. I just wish that there was a little bit more. My only complaint, and it's my
Okay.
complaint with Thor comics in general, especially when reading them on Marvel Unlimited, as I learned the hard way.
Okay.
Do not use Marvel Unlimited's app in the browser, because they do not give you the HD version of the comic, and the fonts are impossible to read.
Okay.
And it's always kind of been like the sans serif font that they use for Thor. It takes me double the amount of time to read a Thor comic than it does a normal comic at times, because of the font choices. And
Okay.
I get why they're doing it, but I have to read it on my iPad in order to actually get the full experience, or read it in print, because never doing that in browser Marvel Unlimited again. That was rough.
Steer clear of the browser then. Spring for the app, or buy the book and have it in your hands.
100%. Yes.
See,
Chris, what about
Ryan,
you?
well, first of all, what's splendid here is that you got full on Levenstein. You got the so you got the technical outrage. When just the wrath over a poor technical application. So, man, you got your money's worth here.
It's Ian's version of what Thor would say. Someone suggests to Ian, you should read it on the browser, and Ian just says, "I say thee nay."
Exactly. You're damn right. You're damn right. Lesson learned. DC Infinite knows how to do a browser comic reader. Marvel, not so much.
Okay.
Not so much.
I had a similar experience with Ian, as Ian did. It was, like I said earlier, it was really, I wasn't expecting how, I should have, because it's Willingham, but how engaged this book was on multiple levels, as I said. And I got the Warriors 3, all the typical fun adventure I would expect from those characters. And then I got, double the enjoyment, because he took the time to delve deeper into the characters, which really isn't done that often with them. Yeah. So, if at all. So, this was a really excellent miniseries. I mean, a lot of miniseries are throwaways, and they're all tend to be crossover tie-ins. I mean, for speaking myself, I don't even read a lot of them anymore. It's too much, and I just get bored. But this actually advanced the characters. And again, to go back to Ian's flash the pan comment, it's a shame they didn't go further with that. But knowing the way these companies work, Ian is probably correct in that movie was coming out, and you see this with all the Marvel films, right? They kind of flood the market then for a brief period with different titles related to that particular part of the universe. And they did it there. And I'm not complaining, because it was a great story. I just, again, wish that we had more with Helen. I forgot what Helen's Asgardian name is, but
Scattier.
There you go. Yep. I know I could count on you to pronounce that properly too. But so yeah, I would encourage listeners who like the Warriors 3 in general, if you haven't read this, because I hadn't read it before, definitely read it. It's one of the best use of the Warriors 3 I've experienced in comics.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for joining me for this book review of the Warriors 3 2010 limited series. If you wanted just for my listeners on Across the Bifrost, any parting things about Comic Geek Speak or your personal projects, feel free to plug them here, and then we'll sign off.
Ian, fire away.
You can check us out at Comic Geek Speak, and youtube.com/Comic Geek Speak. We usually record at least once a week, and then post a video afterwards to the YouTube, and the MP3s are there. Recent episodes, I know this is coming out in a couple weeks
Yeah.
after the fact, but we just did a book of the month club on Starman that I'm really proud of.
Yes.
Issues 0 through 11 of the seminal series that James Robinson did back in the 90s for DC. And once this episode and the next episode after that is a top 5 on George Perez. That
Awesome.
We're also looking forward to doing. So yeah, comicgeekspeak.com. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at I_AM_sci-fi. I am sci-fi. So
okay. Guys, thank you again. Always enjoy these chats.
Thank you,
Appreciate
sir.
it. We had our own little Warriors 3 tonight, which was kind of nice. I appreciated that. So we will see you down the road, gentlemen.
All right. Thanks for having us, Ryan.
Adios. Thank you.
Well, everyone, that is going to do it for the show today. I want to thank Chris and Ian for stopping by from Comic Geek Speak. I love that show. Love how they break down and talk about comics, and I knew you would enjoy this breakdown of the Warriors 3, a team of heroes that I get so much enjoyment from, and I love them so much. So I wanted to share this conversation with you today. Another thing I want to share with you is a link in the episode description. Earlier at the beginning of the episode, I mentioned that we have 2 awesome new patrons on our Patreon account. They are enjoying some bonus material that I put up there on a regular basis, and you can do that too. For just a few bucks a month, you can get more content from Across the Bifrost from myself, including our Patreon exclusive series, I've Got Issues, where I talk about the other things that I'm reading. So that is what I recommend for you today. Look at that link in the episode description, click it, become a patron, and enjoy all the content that we have up there. That'll be a great next step for you. Also, we have some great episodes coming up. We are going to be revisiting our Jason Aaron Thor retrospective coming up soon. We're going to be talking about new comics. You can always join us on Thursday for our throwback series where we look at the history of Thor 1 issue at a time. We've got some great guests lined up for those episodes as well. Whenever, however you engage with us next, when you jump aboard the Bifrost for your next adventure through the 9 realms, we are so excited that you're going to do that in the future, whenever you do, however you do that. So until that time that we meet again aboard this rainbow bridge, I encourage you, dear friends, listeners, friends of the Bifrost, to stay worthy.